What's that been like?
Well, honestly, when we went up the first day, I was familiar because I used to live in Asheville. And we made the first stop in Morganton, and MJ and I drove up, and I was like, where's they drop off? I need to back up where they drop off their supplies. Me thinking that they're going to have all these supplies, and she come out, one of our community members come out, and she was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad y'all here.
As you all have just seen, what essentially was happening was there were ladies there packing up items for the victims of Hurricane Helene. You can see deodorant and other various items on the counter, soaps as well. Okay. And during this, the lady is actually speaking to Kamala Harris and telling her how she would go, so she could donate items. She would go to a shelter and she would see no one there in terms of, cars, people donating items. Then she goes there and sees that she's the only one that has donated anything. And then one was a teenager in particular, where she was giving pads out, and it was like a bag with like 13 pads or so in it. And the girl was so thankful and grateful because she said, we haven't had anything. Okay, no rescue, nothing has come our way. Okay, so she was speaking about that. And let me know down below what your comments are on this. But as she was saying that, I couldn't help but to look at Kamala, and she looked both confused and not empathetic in any way. She looked like she was confused, and she looked like she really did not care. I was like, okay. Because, people make these little titles on Twitter, because that's where I found this video. People make these titles, and I'm like, is that really what's happening? Or is the person just having a bad day? Or are you just misreading the visuals, okay? So then I go look, and I'm like, oh, they weren't exaggerating. Because you look at her, at first it's like, oh, And then as she's doing it, she had a deodorant in her hand. And then she looked at it, like she was looking at the lady. And then she was like, okay, maybe I should start actually physically moving and doing something. So then she picked up the deodorant. Then she held it and she looked like, now, where does this go? Because obviously she just got there. Let's get real. She wasn't doing this stuff for no hours and hours and hours. She didn't look like she was doing anything for hours and hours and hours. So she then, the lady hands her the bag, and then she puts it in there, and she's like, and then there's a point in that video where you look at her and you're like, she don't care. And it could just be me reading into it. Could just be me just being like, whatever. Alex just doesn't like her. Okay. But this is not the first time that she's done something like this. It was the National Association of Black Journalists. And she got done having the interview with them. And then she walked off. She, shook the hands up. Okay. And then she walked off and her face went from to, and it was an immediate thing right when she turned her head and she looked annoyed. And I was listening to some of that video, and yeah, they were asking some difficult questions. One was in terms of gun control. What are you going to do? And then Kamala's like, oh, we're going to make sure we have an age. She's like, yeah, but criminals don't care. They can get them off the street. So how are we going to, having an age requirement to get a gun isn't going to keep guns off the streets, because if you're already breaking the law, you're not going to go and legally get a gun 9 times out of 10 to then use it for a crime. You would get one of those ghost guns, so that was the thing. I'm like, how do you, this is what this lady is referring to. And you're looking at her like she's stupid, and then she was just visibly annoyed, visibly irritated, just like this. That's just my opinion on her and that. Let me know what you all think. Am I reading into it a little bit too much? Let me know down below.